Welcome to the Party Lines, where we look at the big issues, some political, some not so political, and address them from both sides of the aisle. Are Canadians actually worse off than they were a decade ago? A new video breaking down everything from rising debt and crime to falling productivity and longer healthcare wait times argues this country is in decline. I'd like to welcome Anthony Feor, Liberal commentator, to our show today as a guest host. And let's watch the clip. Here's the guest.
Do you ever get the sense that there's something wrong with this country? That we're in a more precarious situation than we were a decade ago? You're not alone. Join us as we explore Canada's decline!
GDP per capita is a measure of a country's economic output that takes population into account. Basically, the average value of goods and services that each person produces. Between 2010 and 2015, per capita GDP in Canada and the United States was rising in unison, but then started diverging. Both countries took a major hit during the pandemic, but afterwards the US started growing while Canada stagnated. The bottom line? Canadians are significantly less wealthy than they would have been if our economy had kept pace with America's.
Small businesses are the engine of the Canadian economy, but the number of Canadians willing to take the risk has been falling since 2018.
Today, there are over 103,000 fewer self-employed Canadians with employees than there were at the turn of the century. Between 1867 and 2015, Canada fought 2 world wars and completed nation-building infrastructure projects, including a
So we're not going to go back to last show and call this the lost Liberal decade.
Thank you.
We're not even going to touch that. But from the standpoint of, what he's saying, I mean, and COVID wasn't, this was a very unique decade because we have pre-COVID, post-COVID, and the time between. It's all been a blur. But looking at the numbers and there's no one that can debate we have a productivity challenge. We're not keeping up with our neighbors to the south.
No, we're not. And I'm not going to defend that. First video I saw that referenced the pandemic, which I thought was smart because it's very conveniently left out of narratives.
Yeah, I don't know why that would be. It's not like anyone forgets. Oh yeah, forget about that.
No, but they want you to forget it. So
Yeah,
the way people, the way some people have to get elected in this country is relying on the voters to forget things or not know anything.
Sure,
so we're not going to go there.
That's consistent anyway.
Yeah. So let's just go right from the top here. Let's just talk about the debt. Okay, this is very easy. Would we have wanted to let the economy collapse, a la 2009, America style?
Right.
I don't think anybody is going to be going for that. So we've now seen 2 extremes in the last 16 years. We've seen letting things fall apart or taking trillions of dollars we don't have and flushing it into the economy. And I'd be willing to bet that Canadian homeowners who bought their home before 2020 are super happy that we did that.
Yeah, but realistically, interest rates are a thing. The interest rates before the utopia that the homeowners had is that's false. That's la la land. It's not a realistic thing. I mean, I remember when I bought my first house many, many years ago, 26 years ago, 5.75 for a fixed amortization.
Yeah.
That was regular. That was normal. So we went in this lull of, interest rates aren't real. And we've been riding that wave. Now, the small business stats are what actually surprised me in this one, where I just didn't realize, I've been on the business side and supporting small business and involved in small business my whole career. So it wasn't something where I thought, wow, I actually recognize that the numbers are decreasing.
I think it's a regulatory problem too, and I hope that gets addressed with the current government because there's far too many regulations and steps. But it's not just feds; it's province, and there's also municipal permitting and all that crap that has to get rid of too.
Yeah.
I think,
and some jurisdictions have regions on top of that.
Well, the one that I live in does for sure. And I'm just sitting here being like, this is what people are expecting coming out of COVID. I'm only going to be able to say the C word so many times before it's really over. And by the end of the decade, no one's going to care anymore. We need levels of government to work together. You and I can agree on that. And I don't think that the only people that are wishing we let the economy collapse are people my age or younger. Because when 2009 happened, I got to buy Apple stock at $29 US a share. That'll never happen again.
I was a small business owner from 2004 to 2009 specifically. So I get that and what happened. I think the problem we have is we went through getting hit with COVID and the affordability's gotten worse. So it's just like we keep getting kicked. And I'm saying we as the general, I'm speaking on behalf of the nation here, but the problem is we've never gotten back up yet.
Our basic needs are getting more expensive. Energy, food, but I don't know, we don't control that.
I know.
We don't control it.
I do
This
agree.
is how hard these topics are, because what levers do the federal government have to make groceries less expensive? Remember in the 70s when we tried to do wage and price controls, it made inflation worse. We don't want that stuff
And
worse.
the problem that we have is that we don't pay enough attention that we import a lot of our food. So when there's U.S. policies on farmers, we don't get enough attention up here on that, right? When we talk about these, tariffs and this is happening and what we're doing with China and, everything it's cut by 1,000 cuts. Anyways.
You could do a whole episode on supply chain issues, though. I'm sure we
Exactly.
could.
Immigration remains one of the most politically charged issues in the country. We'll look at the latest heated debate in Ottawa when we come back. As the federal government insists to regain control of Canada's immigration system, critics argue abuse, weak enforcement, security concerns all tell a very different story. The exchange in Parliament quickly escalated. Here's what was said.
I mean, when you listen to that answer and then listen to the Prime Minister say that they've taken back control of the immigration system, it kind of sounds a little Delulu, hey? Like, the entire system is rife with abuse. There's no way to track if non-citizens actually leave, and they're issuing visitor visas to terrorists. So if this is the Prime Minister's definition of what taking control of the immigration system is, then the dumpster fire is his fault, not hers. Does she agree?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Let me answer this question in the preferred language of the member, because she seems to really be confused. Our government is laying the foundation of a comprehensive exit tracking system, one that they could have done, or anybody could have done, over the 100 and 200 years ago. But we are doing that. As we said, temporary resident status is temporary. People are expected to leave when they finish. On this side of the House, we are focused on attracting healthcare workers and tradespeople to strengthen our rural economies and communities, and we will continue to do that.
I love the word Delulu. I think I'm going to incorporate that in my verbiage every day. I love the fact that the one comment was people are expected to leave when their visa expires. That's not the reality of the situation. And the fact that she talked about checkpoints and rules and all the rest of it, we've never had immigration like we've had today. Like we never talked about immigration 10, 15 years ago. That's all we talked about. It wasn't a topic. It just happened. I've been part of a program for many years, or was part of it, for a startup visa for business owners to bring a company and come to Canada and get their permanent residency. And I was the one who signed off on these things. The program was canceled, I believe, in January or on a hiatus, and as it should have been. It was immigration for fees. That's all it was. It was buying your immigration. And that is rampant in these programs that is happening right now. So, how do you fix this and how do you track it? Tracking is new. You can't say it was a 100-year-old problem. So I don't know.
Okay, so you might be surprised by my answer here. And this is where I fight with a lot of people on my side, particularly because we won't say the quiet part loud. The way we did immigration in 22 and 23 was wrong.
Okay.
And we have to be able to have that conversation with the public and be able to articulate what our response is going to be. And we can't spend time blaming previous administrations. People don't want to hear stuff like that. When I hear the minister talk, the only thing I think of in my head is cabinet shuffle immediately. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Like, no.
Yeah.
And the reason why I love...
Think that'll happen?
Yeah, well, it better. If I was the prime minister,
Right.
it would have happened a couple weeks ago.
Well,
But,
I think the issue is immigration's starting to perk up again. It hasn't become the burning topic again, because it faded. It hasn't gone away, but it faded.
But here's the problem, though. Look at our country. 1 million people are missing. They're gone. Has healthcare gotten better? No. Has our education system gotten better? No. Has housing affordability gotten that much better? Probably not. $200 extra a year for rent is not a big decrease in my opinion.
Yep.
So the problem we're having with immigration as a government is this. We're not being honest about what happened, and we are not talking to people about how we're actually going to make it better. What is this comprehensive plan to track people leaving? I don't care what side of the bench you're on.
Yeah.
This is a big problem.
Yeah, I don't think...
But for the fact, it's a problem because we need immigration to grow our economy and grow our GDP. But it has to be done in a responsible way. And
I was going to say the same. I've said the same thing to Ashley, and I blew her mind a bunch of episodes ago. I said, maybe we need a pause. I said, because we're trying to...
not a pause.
Let me hear me out.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
I said, you're trying to fix a problem that is ongoing that you haven't done anything about. I'm all about... This is how we build this country's immigration. But the immigration we have now is not proper immigration. It's not we're not identifying... The point of immigration is to identify gaps that we need to build our economy. That is not being done.
Yeah.
How we do this is not happening whatsoever.
Yeah.
So I know it's extreme to say pause it, and I mean, I'm going the other side.
It is.
But the point is you're trying to fix a problem while it's still happening. Like everything's leaking, but you're not stopping the water coming.
We've used... The student visa thing is my favorite thing to talk about. We have exploited these kids from very poor parts of the world to pay for our institutions.
Yep.
Because we don't have the chutzpah to put the tax dollars
Yep.
into education. That is a disgrace
Yep.
from all levels of government.
Yep.
I don't
But the government
care
allowed it to
what
happen.
Anybody
The government
says.
allowed it to happen.
The federal government is responsible for the implementation tracking, but what about the provinces who shut their mouths and open up all these private universities and said, give me all your money,
Yeah.
bring all the kids in?
Yeah, I'm not even talking the private side.
No.
Like you look at a college, a local college where we are.
Yeah.
They're digging in. They're digging in.
But I want to make this clear for your audience. I disagreed with that approach, and it needs to be made better.
Understood.
Much better.
Understood. After the break, we'll look south of the border where there's new warnings that the U.S. economy could be heading towards a recession. Critics say Trump's trade policies may be fueling the risk. We'll be right back. Top economists and major financial institutions of the U.S. are sounding the alarm over the economic fallout from Trump's administration's escalating trade war with China. Here's the latest.
A 90% chance of a recession. That is the prediction tonight from a top economist, Torsten Slok, painting a dire picture of Trump's trade war and the implications, saying it's pushing the U.S. economy to the brink of full-blown crisis. He writes that in just weeks, quote, the consequence will be empty shelves in U.S. stores in a few weeks and COVID-like shortages for consumers and for firms using Chinese products as intermediate goods. And the administration tonight not giving much of a reassurance when pressed on this prediction.
Are you worried about empty shelves?
Not at present. We had some great retailers. I assume they pre-ordered.
Those great retailers were all just at the White House, some of the biggest ones. CEOs of Walmart, Target, and Home Depot, they warned Trump in that meeting that his tariffs could lead to product shortages and more. Barclays tonight is echoing the warnings in a memo to investors, writing, we expect a sharp slowdown and a likely U.S. recession in the coming quarters. All of it comes as tonight we're learning Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Chase, reportedly told investors just days ago, according to the Wall Street Journal, that a best case scenario is a mild recession. It's a daily drumbeat of warnings now coming from people who know a lot about the economy, and it has Americans worried. Our latest poll out this afternoon, finding a majority of Americans, 59%, say Trump's policies have made economic conditions in the U.S. worse, which could explain why the administration is tonight doing all it can to not talk about the economy.
First off, those stats are terrifying, but it's not anything we don't know. The Secretary of State saying, I hate the word assume. First of all, when someone says they assume, well, you don't assume because they already told you this is going to happen. And, I listen when Jamie Dimon speaks. He's very, for the JP Chase CEO, he's actually he's grounded when he actually speaks. And the fact that he says the best case scenario is a recession, that terrifies me. I'm an economics major, and that's the best thing we're going to get out of this. What about a collapse? Are we going to see a collapse? Are we going to see a recession? What do you think?
I'm not an economics major, but you don't need to go to school for economics to know that everything he's doing is raising costs for Americans.
I
And it's
agree.
putting a massive burden on households. The Wall Street Journal published an article, $2,000 plus per year per household for middle-class household in expense increases. Tack on the war to that.
I think that's undervalued. I honestly think it's higher than that.
That scares me.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't want to spend my time bashing the president
Sure.
because this is not entirely his fault, because this is what I'm going to say. There should have been a recession after the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why we haven't had one and we're not letting the business cycle take its course is because that the R word scares everybody. We have survived more recessions than anything.
Recessions are normal.
They are normal.
So
Thank
interest
you.
rates are
Okay.
normal. Recessions are normal.
They are normal.
The economy is a cyclical being. This is
we
not-
avoided one in 2018. We avoided one
Right.
post. But why did we avoid it? The most recent one, because we've taken trillions of dollars we don't have and we've flushed it into the market. So how do you expect my generation to get ahead if the cycle doesn't take its course?
But how do you expect your
would be like if
generation to
everybody-
actually understand the reality of this is what reality is? Because the point of it is I've got a few years on you and a few more gray hairs. I've lived the cycles. You haven't lived the cycles like you said. 2009 you'd brought up
lived it.
before, but not to the extent. I've been around a little bit longer.
Yeah.
I remember, and I'm a TV junkie. I remember '81 when people were paying 20 points on mortgages. And if you said to someone now it's 20% interest rate on mortgage, you think the feedback would be what is 20? How do people do that? People kept their houses.
Mm-hmm.
It's this. We prepared for it. We didn't spend like drunken sailors. It was a different approach to it. We should have had a recession by now. The fact that I think we're going past recession. I think that's the problem.
You have to have natural business cycles. This is what the problem is with our countries is we don't understand that this is a business cycle.
Right.
And anybody who's ever run a business, I'm a realtor, okay? you have good years and bad years. You have peaks and valleys.
Yeah.
Well, let the valley take its course and rebrand and reconfigure.
I mean, you would see that in your day-to-day business.
Of course.
There's been years you're going to be great. And there's other years you're eating off reserves, right? It just happens.
Well,
that way.
I haven't gone that bad.
Wow.
But my whole thing is this. The violation of the Kuzma agreement by the president, who wrote the agreement, called it the greatest deal you've ever seen. Now it's the worst deal in history.
Yeah.
He is responsible for this in terms of household costs going up. When you have the big retailers who are not exactly a friend to progressive parties going into the White House and going, hi, we have to chat about this. This is real stuff.
Yeah.
And this is what I don't understand about this guy. And this is why I keep telling people he is not the smart business person you thought he was. I can't say the word I want to say. He's a fraud. He's a fraud, and he is raising costs for Americans, and it's indirectly affecting the Canadian economy. Look at the steel plants that are going up at Algoma, et cetera. This guy needs to be either removed, or someone's got to go in there and say, it's time to go back to normal.
He's not going to get removed, and
he needs to be.
It's the people around him that are the problem.
He needs to be. His
This
poll
didn't-
numbers are tanking.
It didn't
I'm
happen
very happy.
in the first administration. Prime Minister Mark Carney says people across the Western world are feeling a growing loss of control. Can traditional politics meet the moment? We'll discuss after the break. From affordability and immigration to artificial intelligence and global trade, Prime Minister Mark Carney says a new era of anxiety is reshaping politics across the West. Here's part of the message.
Across all our countries, I think this is safe to say, across all our countries, the same conversation is taking place at kitchen tables and factory floors and chat rooms, people feeling a loss of control. It's a conversation that's been going on for a few years. Control or loss of control over their cost of living. Loss of control over who comes across their borders. Loss of control, as we've just heard, over what enters their social media feed. Control or loss thereof of a technology that may displace, destroy their jobs before it improves their lives. And it has fed a politics of grievance, one that thrives on scarcity, feeds on division, and promises strength through demolition. And it won't be addressed by the old ways. And just as Marshall McLuhan, that's my necessary Canadian reference, Marshall McLuhan, described 60 years ago, our age of anxiety is caused by trying to do today's job with yesterday's tools and yesterday's concepts. But we've created a new public agency, Build Canada Homes, that target.
I do like the reference, using yesterday's tools to fix today's problems. And it's something I've believed in for years. And, new tools are here, and I think they're almost, obviously AI is in every day and how some people have adopted them, not adopted them, but I think the anxiety is only going to get worse when people see what's coming. And the controls around them and the lack of legislation. We've had Amanda Mack previously on the show, and that was my question to her. Like, we haven't regulated so far. How are we going to do it? So I think the anxiety is going to get worse. I know in my day-to-day and what I'm seeing as far as how it's affecting business and the things that we're able to do without hiring people gives me anxiety on a bigger scale from the standpoint of, hey, I love the output I can have and I love the output our teams can have. But from we're not hiring people anymore, what is that going to look like?
I had a totally different response prep because I didn't know which way you were going to go with this, because what is he saying that's not wrong? That's not right. What is he saying that's not right? Everything, and you have to admit.
I will not debate you on this whatsoever.
Perfect.
I'm saying as Canadians, this is where we're at.
I need another segment like this.
Regardless of your party, regardless of anything, there's anxiety on day-to-day. We've discussed many different topics. All of them are related to the Canadians having anxiety. If you want to tie it back, right? We don't have enough of the resources aren't there. The day-to-day costs too much. I don't know how I'm going to afford it. I've got a son who he's been doing his home savings. He's just turned 23. He's doing his home buyer savings. I can't remember the program name. He maxes out every year. He says, "I'm still not going to be able to afford a house."
No, don't say that.
That's
how they want you.
What
to
I'm
think.
saying is
No.
This is a 23-year-old who's telling me this. Who all he does is save. I'm not telling you. He's not saying the government told me this or this told me this. I'm telling you how he feels.
Okay, that's fine. But feeling and what's going to happen for him are going to be two different things. I promise he'll be
maybe, but it's not right now. When he looks at when he's a business owner, when he looks at what he makes versus what his expenses are going to be, I tell him, milk the bank of dad as long as you can. Like, stay at home, do whatever you can.
You're a realtor's dream. So what I was going to say is this. So we're actually agreeing on a lot of stuff, but I want to dial this out because I think this is important to talk about quickly, because I know where he made that speech and I know he's made other speeches. Mark Carney has put our country back on the world stage in the most positive possible way I can think of. And that's who we elected to run this country. Everyone keeps saying to me, well, not everybody, but people in my circles are like, when's he going to make a deal? We have a deal. Trump violated it.
Sure.
What is he going to do with trade with the U.S.? He's doing better on trade than any other prime minister I've seen in my lifetime. He's getting on the plane. He's going and making deals with other countries. Why are we only allowed to trade exclusively with the United States?
No, I agree with that. But he also says he wakes up every day and doesn't think of the U.S., which I think is completely wrong. Like, I don't wake up.
I actually don't believe that.
I know it, but then he'll contradict himself and say, but then the afternoon we spend on the U.S.
Yeah, okay.
So he pretends he's not thinking about the morning, and then he contradicts himself and says, but I'm thinking of the afternoon.
Yeah.
So yes, diversifying trade. There's no one that's going to say all our eggs in one basket is a great idea. We've proved that.
That's all I've been hearing from the conservative circles in the country.
No,
we have to make a deal. They're the only people we can trade with.
No, we can rely on them. We're going to always rely on them. They're our neighbors, they're our friends, they're our cousins, they're our brothers. But, something is broken, and I don't know if we'll be able to fix it with them.
We hired Mark Carney to put our country back on the world stage, and that's exactly
I don't know
what he's done.
That's why we hired him.
That's what he's done, and not to make a deal with Trump, to deal with Trump.
That's it for this week. A big thanks to my guest host, Anthony Feor, for filling in while Ashley Waters is away. Join us next week for more headlines and more discussions as we find the common grounds on the party lines.